All right, so that's the envelope. The next that sits on top of the envelope would be the roof. All right. Now, there's a couple ways to build the roof. They can build it with a rafter construction, or they can actually pre-build trusses. A lot of the builders in today's world are pre-building these trusses. And if you guys can think back, I know Dave and Rick and Bob, you guys are old enough to remember. Remember the little wooden building blocks that look like the triangle, and how you could build walls and then set the triangle on top of it? That's exactly what we're doing here, dudes. All right? You're building the wall, which is the envelope, and then on top of that, you set the framework for the roof. That framework can either be built on site and creating through a rafter where you run a board from one wall to the other wall. That becomes the base of the roof. And then on that, you cut wood at an angle at 45 degrees or whatever, and you pitch them up so they make a pointed top, and ta-da, that's how you've got a roof. All right? A lot of these guys in today's world, in order to build more houses and to actually build in the winter time, will actually build both the frame and the roof in a warehouse. All right? Really cool story. A buddy of mine is an architect, was a construction guy. I used to own a bar. The bar had this little area that I wanted to make my office. And Sam was the first one I ever saw do this. And this was even before I was in real estate, because when I was in the bar world, I owned a couple different bars with some buddies and stuff like that. Sam came in and measured the opening, and it was, 16 feet by whatever. And he literally laid the 2x4s on the ground and built the wall laying down. He put them on edge, capped them with a cross that were 16 feet, and then he put framework in the middle. He stood the wall up, and it slid right in there just perfect. And then he affixed the outside edges of the wall to where the other walls to build a wall, and then we paneled that wall and paneled in an office. That's what these guys are doing. They've got a plan, and they're in a factory where they can lay the wood down, and it's nice and comfortable. It's not in the cold. It's not in the rain. They can lay the walls down and go, okay, we need a wall that's the north end of the wall is 27 by 6 inches, and it's 10 feet tall. They will build it laying down, set it aside. They'll build all the walls and components. Then they build what they call the truss for the roof. It's the same thing. They read the plans and go, well, it's 24 feet across, so they build it 24 feet. They cut the others at an angle, make a triangle out of it, brace the triangle, and then they set it all on the back of a truck. And now what they do is they run that truck out to the slab or the basement where the footings and foundation is already poured, and they can literally stand that building up in a day. All right? If you watched any of those construction or throw and go kind of guys, I know. The Vinyl Village, yeah, that's another good one. I always call them throw and goes. You would see a foundation, and you would, on your way to work, oh, look, there's a foundation, new neighbor coming in. On your way home that evening, you come back and the house is built. You're like, how the hell is that possible? Because what they had been doing for the last couple weeks is the framers have been building that house inside a warehouse. And the good thing is what you have is 5 or 6 framers that'll build all the walls, and they'll pass them off to the next guy, and they'll start building walls for the next house. So you got guys that may walk in to work every day at 9 o'clock till 5, and all they do is build walls all day because they've divisioned that labor. They put it on a truck, ship it out. Then they've got guys that are on-site guys that are going to take these walls and stand them up on the slab. Let's use the slab as an example. Affix them to the slab with, anchoring bolts. Boom, 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 and well, guess what? They build a box. On that, they set the trusses. Boom, 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 boom. And then they start decking the trusses with plywood to cover it in. They seal the outside, and they can do a whole house in a day. So that's how the roof is done. And remember, with the roof, you've also got to take into consideration ventilation. And you've got what they call gable vents. A gable vent is, if you can picture, here, I'll draw it on the board, but at home, the two roofs, the end of the roof is a gable, all right? My house has gable vents, so the house doesn't come up to a point and completely cover the triangle on the end. It's got at the top is a vent, one on each side. That's called the gable vent. Some of the newer homes now, they have what they call a ridge vent. So if you imagine where the two come together at the point, they don't actually touch and seal. They leave it a little open, and then they run a piece over the top of that to protect the rain from coming in, but it vents out that way. And you need some roof vents because you've got things like moisture that could be collected in there, or some of the other noxious gases or anything like that. So they have to take into consideration those when they lay the decking down, so that they know that there's a vent from the bathroom, because you've got to vent, toilets. There's going to be a skylight over the kitchen sink, so they got to know exactly where to put that hole for the skylight. You may have dryer vents, anything like that. So all of that gets taken into, once again, from the blueprints that says there's a kitchen that's 7 feet from this corner. Well, on the roof, 7 feet from the corner of the roof, we need a hole for a skylight, so that skylight goes right over the kitchen sink, or however you guys want to work it out. Now, the next thing, so basically we've now got that envelope complete, all right? We've had our foundation, footings, we poured the foundation, we put some wood over the top of that hole, which we call a basement, and called it flooring. We've then built the framing or the envelope and sealed that with the roof. Now, in this framing envelope, it would sure be awful dark all the time if we sealed everything in. So we actually now have to add some windows to the framing. And the windows are nothing more than a hole. That's all it is. It's a hole to look out of. There's all kinds of different windows. You can have single hung windows. Single hung windows is where there's a top and a bottom, but only the bottom raises up, so only one of them move, as opposed to a double hung window, both the top and the bottom of the window can move. You've got that kind of window. You've got a casement window. A casement window you don't see much anymore, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, maybe in the 70s. Have you ever seen a window where it's got a little crank and you crank it and it opens from the side instead of up or down? The whole window opens, whereas like a double hung, it slides up on the rail, right? Casement window is going to just, where the whole window is going to crank it out, and you crank it out at an angle. You've also got sliding doors that may need to be in there. You've got bay windows. Those are the big one. You could also call it a picture window. Bay window implies that there's usually a seat there, so it bumps out from the side of the house. Whereas a picture window, very common in the front room to have a big, big picture window so that you can get great natural light in and screw with your new TV that you just bought and put it on the wrong end of the living room. But I'm not bitter, okay? Big 73-inch TV, we set it up. First day, we're like, hey, this is great. Oh, first night, should I say. Next day, I'm sitting there and the sun's up. I'm like, crap, this is not going to work. We actually had to end up moving rooms, moving into the room, turn the room around, so that with the window sun. Yeah, I know. We didn't turn the room around, Rick. We moved the stuff in the room to turn it around. Whew. You're lucky you're not being graded. So you got, big picture windows, plate glass windows, I don't know what you call it. Then you got the skylight, which is what I alluded to. In my house, we have a skylight above the shower. It's one of those round skylights. So I don't know why. I guess you want to be in the sunlight while you shower? I don't know. So those are windows. In that, I put also a sliding door. We're not going to count. Doors aren't going to go here. Doors would probably go sliding glass door, like out of your kitchen into the backyard, constitutes a window. Exterior doors, and there's a difference between exterior and interior doors. Exterior doors typically in today's world are made of metal, even though they're made to look like wood, okay? And there are many decorative styles. Like, for instance, at our housing addition, well, it's not mine anymore. It's the one I used to live in. I sold my house and now moved down with Kelly. Had what they required was called 6-panel windows, 6-panel doors. It's called 6-panel doors. If you've seen one, there are like little ridges around the door and the front of the door that make it look like there's 6 panels. There's 2 on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and then 2 on the top, and they call that a 6-panel door. That's not like there's maybe a little peephole in it. A lot of times, if you remember the old kitchen door was like half wood on the way up, and then the other half was window. That's not what you typically want for an exterior door anymore, for a safety and security reason, okay? But you can get exterior doors in about any color. Typically, they all run the same size because it is a generic size that all houses use. But you could have double doors, I guess, if your front door may have double doors. A buddy of mine named Rich has double doors. So he's got one that stays closed most of the time and you open it, but literally he could flip the little latches and open both doors if you wanted to go in the house. Can be solid core. What that means is the middle of them between the front of the door and the back of the door is solid. They also can be hollow core. All right. Solid core obviously are more expensive, much better for safety issues. However, the ease of kicking in the door jamb by kicking on the doorknob isn't really changed a lot by solid core. So what it really does would stop like somebody trying to drill through the door. I don't know anybody would do that. Now, it's not on this list, but we could talk about also interior doors. Interior doors are usually different, all right? They almost always are hollow core doors. And the reason is cheaper, all right? And let's face it, very seldom do you keep anybody out of an interior door physically. And what I mean by that is, you know what I mean? I mean, if I lock the door of my house, the kids say it's locked, they're not going to come in because they understand the word privacy. But if I lock the robber out, he's just going to kick a hollow core door in. So what is it in The Shining? When he breaks the door and peeks through, that's a solid core door. That's back when houses were houses and doors were doors. Don't make a lot of those anymore. Most all of them, you go to Lowe's or any of those and you see a interior door, they're almost always going to be hollow core.